"Woke killed Mortal Kombat 1" is a statement I see very often online. Almost every one of my videos will have a dozen comments or so claiming that Mortal Kombat 1 went woke. So today, let's analyze everything in this game that could be considered woke, while also discussing woke changes that begun much earlier in the series. Real quick, I wanted to thank everyone for the success of my last video. I'm really glad you all enjoyed it and did not mind my sick voice. The good news is my voice is still gone, so today's video should sound very similar. Oh, and I hope you all had a wonderful holiday break because I know that I did. So without any further ado, let's begin. Just like my last video, I wanted to start from the beginning and then move forward chronologically. So let's begin with Tanya's reveal. This character had a drastic redesign, so much so that fans hardly recognized the character at first. And honestly, I could make an entire video on this topic, but I just don't think many people care to watch a Tanya video. So for now, I'll just give the brief rundown. Nearly everything about this character was changed in Mortal Kombat 1. In past games, Tanya's design was Egyptian-inspired, but in Mortal Kombat 1, Tanya is African and works for the Umgadi, which according to Google is an African word, Zulu to be specific. And this had many players confused because why would the developers bring back a fan favorite character only to change nearly everything about the character? Honestly, I think it's very likely that NetherRealm looked at their roster and realized they had no black women. And in the modern day of Western gaming, that's a massive sin that will never be forgiven. And as a result, Tanya was made black, which some might consider a good decision, but I think this easily could have been a new character instead, since her appearance, her story, her weapons, and even her personality had all been changed anyway. You pretty much have a brand new character here, so why name her Tanya? But I digress. The main point is I do think this change to Tanya was done for diversity reasons, which many would consider woke. But there's one more reason NetherRealm could have made this change. Some players had been debating Tanya's race online for a while, for several games, and it's possible that NetherRealm wanted to end that debate once and for all, so they made Tanya clearly black so that no one could argue this debate ever again. And on top of that, the Umgadi are all women, which could definitely be seen as woke too. Why aren't men allowed to protect the royal family? Why is it exclusively women? Keep in mind, this group is meant to be extremely strong, yet you're telling me no man made the cut? The strongest bodyguards in Outworld are all female? I find that pretty hard to believe. This could definitely be a woke decision, but honestly, it could just be NetherRealm copying Marvel again, which they do a ton in this game. Lastly, Tanya and Melina are clearly in a gay relationship, which many players would consider woke. However, don't forget that Mortal Kombat X was the first game to introduce this romance between Tanya and Melina, and that game also introduced a gay character named Kung Jin, and some argue that Cassie is gay-coded as well. Yet even so, most players adore Mortal Kombat X, and I don't see many people calling it woke. So if anybody watching knows why that might be, please let me know in the comments down below. At the end of the day, it definitely does seem like Tanya, along with her new lore and militia, was all changed for the sake of diversity, which is a very common trend in modern gaming, and many players would consider it woke. Next up, we have the censored costumes. Many fans were excited to see that NetherRealm was adding 3D era costumes to the game, until they realized the costumes had been altered. For a couple of fast examples, Li Mei's legs were now covered, Natara's booty had been covered, and even Shao Kahn's crotch had been censored as well. Or in other words, the outfits were all made less sexual on purpose, which definitely has been a woke trend in modern gaming for years now, especially Western gaming, and I consider it anti-consumer, because the players never wanted these costumes to be changed. And like the Fourth Snake pointed out in his video, NetherRealm could have just picked other costumes that did not need to be censored. Or in other words, there's plenty of classic costumes that aren't revealing, and NetherRealm could have just picked those and there wouldn't have had to be any censorship. However, for some reason, NetherRealm did choose the revealing costumes from past games, but then covered them up, which many players would definitely consider woke, but my issue is how anti-consumer it is. Game developers should never add something to the game that players want, but then alter it in ways that fans did not ask for. That decision was wrong and also very dumb. The other big fighting games have revealing costumes, so why can't Mortal Kombat? This game series is famous for killing people, but we're drawing lines at the clothing section? It just doesn't make any sense, and I hope that future games break this trend. You don't have to add revealing costumes to the game, it's not required, but if you are going to add them, then you don't censor them. That's just a terrible idea that upsets a lot of people. But with that all said, Deception Melina was recently added to the game, and she's not censored at all, so maybe this could be a good sign of things to come. Next up, we have Janet Cage, otherwise known as female Johnny Cage. Some critics claim this character is meant to be trans, but that's never stated anywhere. anywhere. Even so, I can't remember any players asking for female Johnny Cage. And honestly, Cassie Cage would have been a much smarter choice. She's an established character that fans love and is also Johnny Cage's daughter, so she shares many of his attacks and even has his green glow. But instead, NetherRealm decided to add a female Johnny Cage. So is it woke to take a fan favorite character and introduce a lady version of them? Maybe so. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. At the very least, I can say for certain that no fans were asking for this. Janet could be created solely for diversity, and if that is the case, why didn't NetherRealm just pick an existing woman from the series? Because there's tons to pick from, yet they chose to make Johnny a woman instead. Kinda weird. For a small side segment, I noticed that many of the male characters have lost their ranks or been depowered since past games. In other words, they got demoted and are physically weaker than in past games. The best example of this is Shao Kahn. He's been demoted to General, and I don't think he wins a single fight in the entire game. Put simply, he's a pathetic shadow of his former self, and the same is true for Reiko. He's no longer a general and also never wins any fights. You could even count Shang Tsung too, since he begins the game as a snake oil salesman and is much weaker too. In fact, he hasn't even mastered sorcery, instead relying on basic alchemy. He's also no longer an evil mastermind, since the original Shang Tsung was revealed to be the man in charge the whole time, and he's dead now, which means we're left with the much weaker Shang Tsung. And then finally, we have Raiden, who is no longer a god because Liu Kang replaced him with that status, which does make sense in the lore. However, my issue is that Raiden can't use lightning without a magic item. That change has never sat well with me, since Liu Kang and other humans can throw fire and other magic abilities, so why couldn't the writers just let Raiden keep his lightning abilities? Once again, another male character had been nerfed, and I wanted to include Raiden because every other example are villains. And with this all said, I'm not sure if making male characters weaker could be considered woke. Let me know in the comments. I wanted to include it anyway because as I was writing this script, I noticed how a lot of the men have just been made weaker. And for the villains, that could make sense because Liu Kang purposely nerfed them, but even some of the good guys like Raiden and even Johnny Cage are much weaker in this new game. Johnny Cage doesn't even have the green glow abilities anymore. He's just a regular martial artist. Once again, I'm not sure if it's woke, but I'm sure plenty of women and lady gamers would be equally upset if all the female characters had been nerfed in the next game. But alright, next up we have the biggest change, Sektor and Cyrax. I think this change in particular is what most players are talking about when they call Mortal Kombat 1 woke. In every past game, Sektor and Cyrax were male ninjas who eventually get converted into cyborgs. But in Mortal Kombat 1, both characters are women now and also dating fan favorite characters, for some reason. And on top of that, they aren't mutilated cyborgs at all anymore. Instead, they pilot mechanical suits similar to Iron Man. As you can see, it's a very big change. And very similar to Tanya's changes, the fans never asked for any of this, which will always be my biggest gripe with every change mentioned in this video. Woke or not, these changes were not made for the fans. Oh, and I almost forgot that Sektor becomes leader of the Lin Kuei at the end of Story Mode Part 2. And some would consider it woke when a female character randomly gets promoted to a leadership position. And even if it's not woke, Liu Kang is crazy dumb for doing this, because Sektor led the attack on Scorpion's wedding and also supported all of Bihan's atrocious ideas. So making her the leader of the Lin Kuei is not going to end well. So once again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Why do you think that NetherRealm changed Sektor and Cyrax so drastically? It definitely could be woke, but honestly, there's other possibilities worth mentioning. NetherRealm has gotten complaints in the past that their combat packs and DLC bundles in general have little or no women in them. Then on top of that, the fans wanted Sektor and Cyrax to return. So it is possible that NetherRealm thought by changing Sektor and Cyrax into women, they'd be killing two birds with one stone. The fans get Sektor and Cyrax back, and also the DLC bundle has more women in it. I think that could have been their motivation, but the truth is fans did not like this change at all, and as mentioned earlier, I think this change in particular to Sektor and Cyrax is the main reason people are calling the game woke. Hindsight is 2020, but these two characters, along with Tanya, could have just been new characters. It would have gone over better with fans, but I digress. Those are all the woke examples I could think of. Changing fan favorite characters to add more diversity, censoring beloved costumes, and introducing new characters to add diversity. Oh, and the nerfing of strong male characters. That could also be a woke thing, but also it could just be Liu Kang's fault. That man does not want the smoke. Overall, all jokes aside, my main issue with these changes is how they go against what players want. Plenty of popular and beloved games games, TV shows, movies, etc. have woke elements to them, but the issue with Mortal Kombat 1 is that players never wanted any of these changes, and also some of the changes are pretty major. So I hope NetherRealm is more fan-focused in the future, because despite what you might think about this video, I do love the Mortal Kombat series and I want the future games to do well. I don't make critical videos like this because I want a game to fail. I just want great games that also give players what they want, plain and simple. Thanks for watching, everyone. Make sure to come back next time, and as always, stay underdogs. Man, I hope my voice comes back soon.